You walk out of the grocery store every single week having paid more than you should, and the worst part is nothing in your cart looks suspicious. 15 items, completely ordinary, the kind of stuff every household buys without thinking twice. But each one is quietly draining your budget in ways the store is counting on you never noticing. And the item sitting at number one on this list, it's probably already in your home. You bought it recently, it seems totally harmless. It is not. We're going through all 15 of them, what's really going on, and what to buy instead. Stay until the end. You'll want to see where this lands. Let's get into it. 15. Breakfast cereal. Walk down the cereal aisle and you're not just looking at food. You're walking through a masterclass in consumer psychology. Cartoon characters positioned at a child's eye level. Bright packaging that hasn't changed in decades because familiarity reads as trustworthiness. Bold claims about vitamins and whole grains plastered across the front. None of that is accidental. Every inch of that box has been tested, refined, and optimized to make sure your hand reaches for it before your brain catches up. The brands behind those boxes spend hundreds of millions annually on that recognition, and that investment doesn't vanish into thin air. It gets folded into the price you pay at the register. Now look immediately to the left or right of the name brand. The store version, often made from identical base ingredients, a nearly identical nutritional breakdown, and a flavor that holds up just as well once it's in a bowl with milk. The gap isn't in the product, it's in the packaging and 30 years of advertising that taught your family to grab one name without ever questioning it. $2 per box might seem like nothing in isolation. Multiply that across 52 weeks of shopping trips and you're talking over $100 a year spent not on better food, but on brand equity you didn't need to fund. Run the simple test. Pour both versions into identical bowls and see who in your household can tell them apart. Most of the time, nobody can. If that's the result, that familiar box has been riding free in your cart for a long time. 14. Dry pasta. Pasta is as close to a stripped-down food as you can get. Semolina, water, occasionally egg. That's it. The ingredient panel on most pasta boxes is 3 lines long, and when you actually compare those 3 lines across different brands, they're almost the same words in the same order. And yet there's a real and consistent price difference between the name brand box and the store label sitting directly beside it on the shelf. That gap isn't explained by a better ingredient or a more sophisticated process. It's explained by decades of brand familiarity that made the purchase feel too small and too routine to ever scrutinize. But pasta isn't a once-in-a-while item. It goes in the cart every week. Quick weeknight dinners, soups, baked dishes, cold salads. Each time you drop that familiar box in without looking at the price per ounce, that small difference quietly adds up across the month and the year. Here's the reframe that actually changes how you shop. Pasta is a neutral vehicle. The sauce, the protein, the vegetables, the cheese, those are where the flavor of the meal actually lives. Every extra cent going to a branded box is a cent not going toward those things. Check the unit price, compare the ingredients, put the more affordable box in the cart. The boiling water will treat them exactly the same. 13. Flavored instant oatmeal packets. This one never looks like a problem because the price on the box doesn't raise any red flags. It sits quietly in the breakfast section, gets tossed in the cart, and the purchase is forgotten before you've even made it to the next aisle. That's exactly how it's designed to work. But run the actual numbers once and the math stops making sense. A box of 10 individual flavored packets gives you 10 small servings. A large canister of plain rolled oats gives you 40 or more servings for roughly the same amount of money. That's 4 times the food for the same spend. So what's filling that price gap? Foil pouches, individual packaging, and flavor powder that, when you flip the box over and read what's actually in it, turns out to be mostly sugar. Some of the most popular flavored oatmeal options on the market carry more added sugar per serving than most people would associate with a health-conscious breakfast. Plain oats close that gap completely. A sliced banana, a spoonful of nut butter, some frozen berries, a pinch of cinnamon, a small drizzle of honey if you want it sweet. You control the ingredients, the portion, and the cost. Oats are one of the most efficient staples you can keep in a kitchen. The packets are just a more expensive, less nutritious way to access them. 12. Everything about a bagged salad kit is designed to feel like a responsible, thoughtful decision. Pre-washed greens, a small pouch of dressing, a handful of toppings and croutons tucked inside. It looks like a complete meal you made a smart choice about, and that feeling is the entire sales pitch. What you're actually holding is a significant markup on lettuce. The cost per ounce of a salad kit versus loose whole greens, a head of romaine, a bag of plain spinach, is often 2 to 4 times higher. The dressing in that little pouch is not a premium product. It's a small quantity of a basic dressing that costs almost nothing per ounce in a regular bottle. The croutons are a small pile of seasoned bread cubes. These are inexpensive ingredients bundled together to create the impression of added value. The impression doesn't match the price. There's also a freshness issue. Whole lettuce stored properly can hold for close to a week. Pre-cut bagged greens often start deteriorating within 2 or 3 days of being opened. Brown edges, wet spots, that smell that tells you it's done. You paid more and got less time to use it. If the kit is genuinely what's standing between your household and eating vegetables at all, that's worth factoring in. But as a reflexive weekly purchase, it's one of the most consistent ways to overpay for a salad. 11. Pre-shredded cheese. If you've ever made a cheese sauce using a bag of shredded cheddar and watched it clump, turn stringy, or refuse to melt smoothly, that wasn't a mistake you made. That was chemistry built into the product before it ever left the factory. Pre-shredded cheese is coated with anti-caking agents. Cellulose powder is the most common. Potato starch is another. These additives keep the shreds from sticking together inside the bag, and they are completely food safe, but they also create a barrier around each individual shred that interferes with how cheese melts under heat. That's why a bag of shredded cheddar can sit in a hot pan and stay in separate pieces instead of coming together into something smooth and consistent. A block of cheese grated fresh at home has none of those coatings. It melts the way cheese is supposed to melt, evenly, cleanly, folding into the dish rather than fighting it. And here's the part that really should change the habit. The block is almost always cheaper per ounce than the bag. You are paying more per ounce for a product that behaves worse in cooking than the cheaper version you could prepare yourself in 90 seconds with a basic grater. For a quick topping on a bowl of chili, the bag is fine, but if cheese is doing real work in what you're making, start from the block. Quick note before the top 10. We're halfway through and things are about to get considerably more interesting. Which one so far surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. Now let's keep going. 10. Spice jars. A $4 jar of spice doesn't feel like a big spend. It isn't on its own, but most households buy several of them, repeatedly, without ever calculating what they're paying per ounce. If they did that math, even once, the number would stop the purchase in its tracks. The price per ounce on branded grocery store spice jars is often among the highest of anything in the store. But that's only one part of the problem. Dried spices lose potency over time. The flavor compounds that make cumin taste like cumin, that make paprika actually register in a dish, break down slowly and invisibly as the jar sits on a shelf and then in your cabinet. A jar of ground spice that's been sitting for 18 months may still look perfectly fine. It won't cook like a fresh jar, so you use more to compensate. You burn through it faster. You're back buying another one sooner than you should be. International grocery stores, shops serving South Asian, Middle Eastern, Latin American, or East African communities, typically carry the same spices in larger quantities at a fraction of the branded price. And because those stores move high volumes of spices that people cook with daily, the turnover is faster. The spice you're getting is more likely to be fresh. The rule is simple. Spices you rarely use, buy small. Stale spice is genuinely worse than no spice, but for the ones you reach for every week, it's worth finding a better source before you spend $4 on what amounts to a couple of tablespoons. 9. Single-use coffee pods. The pod system is one of the most carefully constructed pricing structures in the modern grocery store. It made a relatively expensive habit feel fast, painless, and small by breaking the total annual cost into daily increments too modest for most people to add up in their heads. A box of pods doesn't feel like a major line item. That's not an accident, that's the design. But the coffee inside those pods, priced by actual ounce of ground coffee, costs dramatically more than the same brand sold in a standard. Nearly all of that difference is the container, the plastic cup, the foil lid, the individual filter, the single-serve format. You're not paying for higher quality coffee, you're paying for the vessel it arrived in. Put a real number to it. Someone drinking 2 cups every morning on pods 7 days a week could easily be spending several $100s more each year than someone using the exact same coffee brand in ground form brewed any other way. That's not a rounding error. That's a meaningful sum spent entirely on packaging. The machine isn't the issue. Keep the machine. A reusable pod filter that fits most systems costs a few dollars once and works with any ground coffee you already buy. That single swap restructures the entire economics of the daily habit. Pods for a rushed morning now and then? Fine. Building your whole caffeine routine on single-use cups is a premium the coffee itself never justified. 8. Individual serving yogurt cups. A single-serve yogurt cup earns your trust before you've read a word on the label. The portion size signals health consciousness. The packaging signals quality. The branding signals that someone thought carefully about what went inside. By the time you register the price, the decision often already feels made. But the price per ounce on an individual cup compared to the large tub of the exact same brand sitting 2 feet away in the same refrigerated case is noticeably higher. What you're paying for is the individual container, the individual lid, the individual label, and the logistics of dividing one product across dozens of separate units. That packaging cost is real, and it's embedded in every cup you lift off the shelf. Now, flick the cup over before it goes in your cart. Many flavored individual yogurt cups, fruit on the bottom, blended berry varieties, carry a significant amount of added sugar. The front of the container shows fruit. The ingredient list, reading top to bottom, may show you a sweetener appearing well before any actual fruit does. Something that presents itself as a healthy breakfast can sit nutritionally far closer to a dessert than most people would guess. The large tub addresses both issues at once: more food for less money, and you control what goes in each bowl: your own fruit, your own granola, your own level of sweetness. 7. Single-serve snack packs. The appeal of this one is straightforward. 12 small bags, already portioned, ready for lunchboxes and glove compartments and desk drawers. The convenience is real, nobody's arguing otherwise. But look at how much food is actually in that box. Add up the total ounces across every individual bag, then compare it to a family-size version of the exact same product. Most of the time, the larger bag holds more food and costs less. Not slightly less, noticeably less. The price premium on snap packs reflects the individual bags, the outer box, and the process of dividing everything into small units. It reflects packaging, not food. You are paying more per ounce to get less product than the larger version on the same shelf. The solution takes 5 minutes once a week. Buy the large bag, portion it into small reusable containers or resealable bags yourself. The crackers are identical. The portion is identical. The only thing that changed is that you did the 5 minutes of dividing yourself instead of paying a manufacturer to do it and then charging you a significant markup on top. 6. Pre-cut produce. The price gap between a whole pineapple and a container of pre-cut pineapple chunks is not subtle. On a cost per ounce basis, the pre-cut version often runs 2, 3, sometimes 4 times higher. It's the same fruit, same origin, same supply chain. The only thing that changed is that someone ran a knife through it, put the pieces in plastic, and the store assigned a price that has almost no relationship to what that labor actually cost. The same pattern plays out everywhere in the produce section. Pre-sliced watermelon, diced onion, broccoli florets, veggie trays. Each one is a basic preparation step dressed up as added value and priced accordingly. And there's a freshness cost that compounds the math even further. A whole bell pepper in your refrigerator can stay firm and usable for well over a week. The same pepper, already sliced and sealed in a plastic container, often starts to soften, discolor, and develop an off smell within 3 or 4 days of opening. You paid more, you got less time to work with it. 2 things solve most of this. Batch prep at the start of the week. 20 minutes, everything washed and cut, accessible all week long. Or shop the freezer aisle, where vegetables are already cleaned, cut, and ready to use at prices consistently lower than fresh pre-cut, with a shelf life measured in months instead of days. 5. Bottled smoothies and juice blends. The presentation on a premium bottled smoothie is deliberate. The color of the liquid is selected to suggest vitality. The font is clean. The ingredient callouts on the front, kale, ginger, spinach, pineapple, are arranged to communicate thoughtful, health-driven curation. Every visual element around you in that refrigerated section reinforces a single message: this is a smart choice. Then you see the price. $5, $6, $7, sometimes $8 for a single bottle. And if you don't stop to actually examine it, it goes in the cart. Here's what the label isn't making clear. Most of those bottles show 2 servings on the nutrition facts, but they're sized and shaped for one person to drink in one sitting, which is exactly what most people do. That means any sugar number on the back needs to be doubled before you can evaluate it honestly. Fruit-dense blends can carry 40, 50, or more grams of total sugar, not from added sweeteners, but from the sheer volume of fruit compressed into one small bottle. And you absorb all of that without the fiber that would have slowed it down if you'd simply eaten the fruit whole. A blender, 4 minutes, and things already in your kitchen. Frozen banana, frozen berries, a handful of spinach, some plain yogurt, a spoonful of nut butter. That combination produces something nutritionally comparable or better at a fraction of the cost, made from exactly what you decided to put in. The bottled version isn't a superior product. It's a premium label on a convenience that consistently costs more than it delivers. 4. Pre-marinated meat. The pitch for pre-marinated meat is reasonable. A tray of seasoned chicken thighs or herb-coated pork cuts sitting ready in the case looks like dinner that's halfway done. After a long workday, that's genuinely appealing. The store knows exactly how appealing it is, but look at what actually happened to that product before it reached the display case. Plain meat was coated in a liquid, resealed in a tray, and repriced upward by the pound. The marinade itself is not a premium ingredient. Most marinades are water, oil, something acidic, salt, sugar, and seasoning, inexpensive by volume. And when a pound of chicken is sitting in that liquid, a real portion of what you're weighing and paying for is the marinade itself. You are paying meat prices per pound for liquid. There's also a visibility issue that matters separately. With a plain cut of meat, you can assess the color and texture through the packaging before committing. With a pre-marinated piece, a dark sauce covers the surface. You're purchasing what you cannot see. Making a marinade at home is nearly effortless. Oil, something acidic, lemon juice or vinegar or wine, garlic, salt, pepper, whatever dried herbs suit the dish. 15 minutes of contact makes a noticeable difference. Overnight in the refrigerator transforms most cuts. Buy plain, season it yourself. The food will be better and the price will be lower. 3. Energy drinks and specialty bottled coffee. This category never quite registers as a grocery budget problem, and that's exactly why it keeps costing people money. A cold can pulled from the refrigerator near checkout, a bottled cold brew, a canned coffee drink with oat milk and vanilla syrup, each one feels like a small, personal, individual choice, a reward, a pick-me-up, not a recurring line item in a household's budget. That framing is precisely how the expense stays invisible. A purchase made every single day is not a treat. It is a habit using the language of a treat to avoid being counted. At $3 to $5 per can or bottle, a daily energy drink runs anywhere from $1,000 to $1,800 over the course of a year. Most people who drink them daily have never done that math because each individual can feels too small to be worth calculating. The health framing compounds the price problem. Language about mental focus, B vitamins, and naturally sourced caffeine implies functional benefits that the ingredient list doesn't support at the quantities present. Most of what's in those cans is caffeine, sugar or an alternative sweetener, and trace vitamins in amounts too small to matter physiologically. The performance story is marketing. The caffeine is real. Nothing else in the can justifies what you're paying. Ground coffee brewed at home delivers the same caffeine at a fraction of the price. The ritual can be identical. The daily cost is not even close. This isn't about giving something up. It's about recognizing when a daily, single-serve purchase has quietly crossed the line from occasional treat into invisible recurring expense. 2. Diet-labeled and specialty health foods. The health food aisle does one thing with remarkable consistency. It takes completely ordinary products, peanut butter, pasta sauce, crackers, granola bars, salad dressing, and repositions them inside a dietary identity. Keto, paleo, Whole30, clean, plant-based. The front label changes. The mechanism is always the same. The word signals virtue, and in grocery retail, virtue commands a price premium. Here is the clearest version of how this plays out. A jar marketed as keto-friendly peanut butter sits on the shelf at a noticeably higher price than the natural peanut butter 2 sections over. Pick up both, turn them over, read the ingredient lists. Keto jar, peanuts, salt. Natural jar, peanuts, salt. The food is identical. The only difference is that one was placed inside a dietary framework with perceived market value, and that positioning added dollars to the price without adding a single ingredient, nutrient, or functional benefit. The same dynamic runs through the entire aisle. Whole 30 pasta sauces that simply contain no added sugar, which also describes several standard marinara options sitting on the regular shelf that nobody thought to market as a health product. Gluten-free items priced well above their conventional counterparts, reaching shoppers who absorbed messaging about gluten without a clinical reason to avoid it. Protein bars at $4 each with essentially the same macros as far less expensive alternatives. One habit closes this gap entirely. Read the ingredient list before you read the front of the package. If the regular version contains the same ingredients and fits how you eat, the label on the front is the only thing you'd be paying for. Labels are not food. Ingredients are food. That distinction is worth money every single week. 1. Bottled water. This is the item that quietly costs more households more money than almost anything else on this list. Not because any single purchase is large, because it happens every week, year after year, with almost no scrutiny, built on an assumption that almost nobody has ever actually stopped to verify. Cases of bottled water sit near the entrance of most grocery stores. The branding is clean and minimal. The names suggest mountain springs, glaciers, untouched natural sources. The message, consistent across every brand, is identical. This water is purer and safer than what comes out of your faucet. Most people accept that at face value without ever looking into it. Here is what actually looking into it shows. A significant portion of the most widely purchased bottled water brands in the country start as municipal tap water. This is not a hidden secret. It is disclosed in regulatory filings. The water is filtered and sometimes remineralized before bottling, but the original source is the same kind of public water supply feeding the tap in your kitchen. That deserves a moment. The premium you're paying is not for a fundamentally different or better source of water. It's for filtration, a plastic bottle, a label, packaging design, and the logistics of moving that case from a production facility to a warehouse to a shelf in your store. There is a second layer here that has been drawing more attention from researchers. Studies have detected microplastics and nanoplastics in bottled water, particles shed by the plastic containers themselves. The science is still developing, and this is not a cause for alarm, but it meaningfully complicates the baseline assumption that bottled water is automatically the cleaner choice. The container itself is introducing something that a glass of filtered tap water simply would not. There are real situations where bottled water makes sense: documented local contamination, aging infrastructure in specific areas, emergency preparedness, travel. These are legitimate use cases, but for the household buying a case of 24 every week simply because it feels like the responsible, cleaner thing to do, that assumption is worth looking at directly. A quality pitcher or countertop filter removes the chlorine taste and odor that drives most people toward bottled water in the first place. The upfront cost pays for itself quickly when compared to a weekly case purchase that never gets added up. A reusable bottle, kept filled in the refrigerator, does everything individual plastic bottles do, without the accumulating plastic and without a weekly cost that stays invisible because it feels too routine to question. Every single item on this list operates through the same core mechanism. The packaging builds trust before the product has to earn anything. The brand name makes the decision. The habit of routine puts it in the cart week after week, unchallenged, unexamined. And underneath all of it, the store is counting on one thing: that you're moving fast, thinking about a dozen other things, and will not stop long enough to actually run the numbers. Running the numbers is not complicated. The unit price is on the shelf tag. Small text, bottom corner, easy to miss, worth finding. The ingredient list is on the back of the package. The question is simple: am I paying for better food, or am I paying for a name, a label, and a convenience that costs more than it saves? Some items genuinely earn what they cost. If something prevents food from going to waste, saves real time you don't have, or helps your household eat consistently better, that value is real. Keep buying it. The goal isn't to strip everything down. It's to know which items are making that case honestly, and which ones are simply counting on the fact that nobody checked. Go through your cart this week and look at it with fresh eyes. Not to punish yourself for any of it, just to see it clearly, maybe for the first time. Because the moment you start asking questions is the moment the store loses its biggest advantage over you, and that's exactly where you want to be. If this was genuinely useful, hit the like button. It helps more people find this. My channel reads every comment. Which item are you swapping out first? Let me know below.